All right. And it looks like we are live. I'm going to be answering your questions, any questions that you might have. I do intend to have these live sessions start to be actually around topics, but I'm testing a bunch of things out that are related to going live. So I'm here to answer your questions. Feel free to ask any questions that you might have related to software, related to programming. Think that these live Q&As are really useful for answering a bunch of questions. But until I actually hear from you guys, what I want to show you is a cool little project that I just found out about. This guy Thomas over at PyPyR created this really cool pipeline task runner. Now, I haven't been able to try it out much yet myself. I will be doing it soon. He gave me this like this in-depth breakdown on how to use it really quickly. So this is something I really want to cover. If there's a package that I haven't covered that you guys really want to see, just hit me up and shoot me a message either on the comment below or anytime in the future. So I love seeing new Python projects, especially something like this that clearly has been worked on for a long time. And Thomas, the guy who creates it, also just really puts a lot of effort and care into it. And I really want to highlight those sorts of things. So anyways, thanks for joining, guys. Hey, Mac, what's up? Glad that you found the channel and you are enjoying it. I'm really hoping that not only are you enjoying it, but you're gonna actually do something with it. Like you're gonna build something for real with it too. That's like my ultimate goal and hope for you with being on this channel. So yeah. And if you do build something, please let me know. I want to check it out. So here's something that I've been working on. Let's test it out, see if this actually works. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on now. There we go. Cool. So it is working. Just answer this question here. Let's try the next one. Love from Nepal. Thank you so much, Sandeep. Appreciate it. I'm enjoying doing all this stuff, and getting the love from you guys really does help quite a bit. Next one, amazing channel. Thanks so much, Sashi. Cool. This is exactly what I've been hoping that would happen with this little project that I'm working on. And the reason being that I wanted to make it a lot easier for me to interact with you guys, and also so you can see just generally what it is that I'm talking about at any given time. And that's why I have these little comments now. Mac, thank you for watching. Appreciate it. Glad you're getting stuff out of this. Hello, how's it going? I cannot pronounce this name, and I'm not even going to try, but thank you for coming out and checking out the live stream. Guys, I'm here to answer any questions that you have, so please let me know if you do. Next question, Sashi Karan. Hey, how's it going? Glad you stumbled upon it as well. That is awesome. You know? Let's see here. Next one, hello from Ukraine. Hey guys, welcome to the live stream. Hello from California, Southern California. The fires, at least down here, I think even in Northern California, have really dissipated a lot. So it makes our air quality so much better. It's just so important to get outside with this year. You know what I mean? It's been something. Next up, let's see here. Please make videos on system design. I will say before I jump into this, this tool that I'm using, that I've been working on to show the comments in the live stream, the ones that I'm actually talking about, the tool that I'm using is certainly not perfect. So there's definitely things I still need to iron out, but I wanted to get using it right away, because that's something about software that's really cool, is we can start using this stuff as soon as possible. Make videos on system design. What kind of system design are you referring to, or are you just referring to the concept in general? Thank you. Hello, just want to be on screen. That's funny. That's a good one. It's funny that it shows my testing outside of this. That's a little glitch that I'll have to fix later. But for now, we'll go back to Marcelo's question. You made a Telegram bot on your personal page in Django. That's awesome. That's really cool. I wonder what you use for the Telegram bot, because that's certainly not something I've covered, but definitely the Django part. So let me know. Oh, this is great. I'm really happy with the results of this early test for showing this. I'm assuming that you guys can see these comments too. It's not just me locally. Like, you can see them on screen. Please let me know. But anyways, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. Appreciate the comment. Every time I open YouTube, I'm live. Yeah, Nicholas. That has been happening a lot lately, because there's tools that this tool let me put it up. This tool in particular that I'm working on is a big part of the reason that I am live, because what I really want to do is have live courses where the first part of it is much like any screencast that I've ever done. And then the second part will be Q&A, and then I'll just kind of split them apart when I'm done with it. But the biggest challenge with doing all that is editing. I don't want to spend all the time doing all this editing, because that means that I'm taken away from either answering your questions or making more content or doing research. So yeah, I've been live a lot, Nicholas. Thank you for noticing and for coming out. Can I upload to YouTube using Python? Yes, you can. Actually, this live stream thing that you see right now, the comment on the screen, is using one of the YouTube APIs. YouTube has really robust APIs, but it does require you to use OAuth authentication or service accounts, which those two things are not too complicated, but fairly complicated if you don't know how to do it. Let's see. And that's so funny. Hello from Pakistan. Hello from California. Thanks for coming out. Pakistan, Code for Mind. Let's see. What can you advise a data engineer with 5 years of experience who wants to switch over to the management side? Well, why do you want to switch to the management side? Do you think it's going to be less work, or are you tired of doing all the data engineering? Let's say, for instance, you're tired of doing the data engineering and now you want to move over to a management role. I would say consulting is a really good way to start doing that. Like freelance consulting, charge practically nothing, because then you can get some momentum and some learning experience on doing that management side. Of course, you can also just offer to do project management for data engineering, whatever discipline in that you might be doing. So hopefully that helps. Honestly, that switch I've never made myself, so I can't really advise too much more, but those are the things that come to mind. All right, so do we need to use multiple consumers for real-time graph in chat window in Django channels? This is going to be a really long-winded question. It really just depends on the scenario that you're trying to accomplish there. Sorry, I can't give more information for that right now. Let's see here. Haha. Yes, this is so great. Please, what can I learn with Django to be better? Actually, before I answer this question, do you guys like it up here better or down at the bottom? Is down at the bottom better? Yeah. I don't know. Let me know in the live chat your thoughts. So another cool thing about what I'm doing here, I will get to this question in just a moment, but another cool thing about having this live chat like this is now I have more control, more granular control of the speed as to which I actually respond to these questions. Because I see a ton of people responding and saying things, but actually having the live chat in a format that's a little bit better for me than I can, I can, I don't know. I think I can better answer questions, and at least to me, it's a little bit more interesting. So cool. Anyways, back to that question. What can I learn with Django to be better? So I'm assuming you want to be better at Django by this question. I would say pick a challenging project that doesn't exist yet, or you don't know how to build it. And then do everything you can to build that project. You will learn so much more when you build something real that you want to see be real, than pretty much anything else. Because along that project, you're going to have to come up with questions to solve things that you never knew what to solve. I think that's why project-based learning is so effective, and it's why I've done it so much, is because there's kind of a roadmap to solve a project. And if you can follow that roadmap initially, then you can start to pave your own roadmap and go from there. So yeah, thanks for the question. Let's see. Thank you for the comment. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. I hope that you enjoy what it is that I do. I enjoy it a lot. It's challenging in every sense of that word. What kind of data can pandas handle? Almost any kind of data. I don't know if you would ever really load in binary data in there, like or image data or video data, but pretty much any kind of tabular data. Let's put it that way. So you could also have SQL queries going into Panda data frames. You can have all sorts of really cool stuff. So hopefully that answers your question. It probably doesn't fully answer it, but that to me seems good. Cool, you can see the comments on screen. Thanks, Mac. Appreciate it. I made your life easier. Thank you. I'm glad. How and what way did I make your life easier, Rodrigo? What did you use to show comments on screen? Okay, so I am working on a project that does this specifically because I needed it for myself, right? So if other people need it, then maybe I'll actually make it a service that does that. But right now, I'll just say generally what I'm doing is I'm using the YouTube data API and React.js in a live production server. All of these things. The production server has a Django backend. React.js actually displays what I see, which you don't necessarily see. Here, I can show it to you though. Right here. Oh, you got the URL. I didn't want that. Anyways, maybe you got the URL, maybe not. Oh well, whatever. So it's not a production service yet. Maybe at some point it will be. I kind of have the sense that maybe I want to make it that way. But the YouTube data API is really the thing that drives this, and then Django and React are helping doing the display portion of it. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm really liking the progress of it so far. Anyways, oh, this one is not cut off. Cool. It kind of looks like it's almost ready to be cut off. This is the longest comment I think I've had on this. There, let me just move it a little bit. Thanks for dealing with this stuff in real time, you guys. That's when the rubber really hits the road, is when we do it real time and all that. Cool. So, question. This is a Q&A. I'd like to ask a question here. Not appeared here for very far. My question is, what steps to master Django to be attractive as a Django web dev? Class-based views, function, or CB. Oh, I'm assuming that you mean your CBV. Is that class-based views? Is that what you're saying? Or function views? Is that what you're asking me about? I'm assuming that is. Okay, so how to master Django. I just mentioned this a little bit, but you build your own project and you do it again. And then again, and then again, and then again, right? That, to me, is the best way to master Django, at least before you move to the next part, which is actually trying to teach other people how to use Django as well. Dennis Ivey, if you guys seen his channel, would be a really good example of this. I'm not exactly sure where he first learned Django, but I know that he's watched some of my series, as he's told me. But I know he's also watched plenty of other places. But he also then turned and started teaching it. Now, teaching is certainly not for everybody, so you don't necessarily have to release what you teach, but the idea of getting in front of a video, whether you're in person or you just, you literally just show the screen and then talk over it. Either way, just get it to where you actually have to articulate what it is that you know. That way you can really start to build a pretty strong foundation of all this stuff. Thanks for the question. Have I thought of moving to Twitch? No, I have not. I do not have an audience whatsoever there. So, I don't know. I feel like I'd be talking to an empty room. I mean, I actually am talking to an empty room, but I do have live chat, so it doesn't feel like an empty room. However, maybe I need to do it where I have the live stream going to all places. I just haven't figured that part out yet in a most effective manner. Thanks for the question. If what you want to do is live courses, have a look at the 3 Blue 1 Brown has been doing. He's been interactive courses with great quality production value. Yeah. 3 Blue 1 Brown is an amazing YouTube channel and does very amazing work. So to get to that point, yeah, maybe. I heard an interview with him. I'm trying to remember his name off the top of my head. But I heard an interview with him where he's like, if he were to do those interactive classes again, he would move them to a completely separate channel because it's a lot different than his normal YouTube stuff, right? So his normal animation videos that explain concepts really, really well. I actually intend to get a little bit closer to explaining the concepts, just really highlighting an individual concept than always coding an entire project. I've been shying away for that for a long time, but I think for a lot of us, it's nice to just dive deep into one topic for maybe like 5 or 10 minutes and then move on. Cool. Thanks for the question. Why do people say using Django standalone is better than using React with Django REST framework, and that using React with Django is overkill? I actually haven't heard many people say that myself, but I'm also not actively looking of the downsides of using React with Django, like on forums and whatnot. So Django standalone or just pure Django with no JavaScript means no interaction, right? So we've got YouTube videos that have this interaction, the interaction being the like button or even this live stream, right? Not the video itself, but the comments and all that stuff. All of that is incredibly JavaScript heavy. So to make a web application that doesn't have JavaScript is probably not a great idea because the interaction or the user interface is going to suffer as a result. So the next question is, well, what kind of JavaScript can you use? Well, you can absolutely use JavaScript, pure JavaScript itself. And well, if you don't know JavaScript, that might be a good way to really master and learn JavaScript. But once you learn JavaScript and you don't want to repeat yourself all the time, you want to stay as dry as possible, but you also want the most effective use of JavaScript, I think React.js and Vue.js are the things for that, to making even the smallest components. So I don't think that using React with Django is overkill. It might be overkill if you are a beginner, right? So you don't want to overload yourself with skills and you don't really know any of them at all. You just kind of dabble in all of them. Instead, in that case, you would definitely want to go Django standalone because, you know, Craigslist still exists. Craigslist is still a dominant force on the web. And if they use JavaScript, it's very little. So that's something to note. This question is basically tied into the last question. Oh, yeah. So here we go. All right. So this is something that I just got. This is a brand new one. Alberto, thank you for the super chat. Let me see if I can pull this one up. Just give me 1 second. I might not be getting all the messages. Yeah, so I need to do something about how to display these super chats a little bit better. So I will just close this out for a moment. And Alberto asks, sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly. Hey man, good afternoon. What are some advantages of learning to make data science or to use data science and ETL pipelines and then learning a framework like Django? So if you're not familiar with ETL, ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So extract meaning, you know, pulling out the data. So a lot of times it's web scraping. A lot of times it's just literally pulling it from a database. And transform means to clean up that data so that then you can load it into some sort of data science library like scikit-learn or even like some deep learning library like Keras or TensorFlow or PyTorch or something like that. So the advantages of learning that stuff prior to Django, well, ETL pipelines and data science in Python pretty much only deals with Python. I mean, there are some exceptions, like actually doing web scraping. You need to learn a few other things to be effective with web scraping. And then to use like SQL or those kinds of databases, you need at least some familiarity to extract from those databases, but not a whole lot, right? So the data science part, you don't actually have to study nearly as much to just get working with the Python side of things to build a pipeline that will clean up your data and get it ready to do some analysis on, or some chart generation or graph generation, or some deep learning on as well. So I would say that the biggest advantages to learning data science first, assuming that you're comfortable and ready to learn the math portion of it, is that you're really gonna be dealing with mostly just Python. Like, you won't have to worry about JavaScript or CSS or HTML. So you can really just gather a lot of things related to Python. But again, it has that math component to it that maybe you don't want to do, and that's why you'd maybe want to jump in to doing more like web development sort of things, because web development's a lot more about the logic, just very simple logic, not so much about the math. Thanks for the question, Alberto. Okay, so let's go back to these questions. So the super chats are a quick way to just cut through the fat, as you see, to just get right into one of the questions. Right, like I just did. It's otherwise, I mean, I literally cannot answer these questions fast enough, because I'll only be on for like an hour or so. So yeah, those super chats also help support the channel, oddly enough, and help me support doing these things. Like, the more super chats I get, the more likely I'm going to continue to do a lot of these live stream Q&As, instead of just recording videos and putting them up. I think there's a lot of really good questions that come out with these live Q&As, which is why I want to do them more. But one of the biggest challenges that I'm trying to solve, which you see this comment on the screen right now, was actually just getting to any meaningful amount of questions anyway. Okay, cool. So let's answer this one. Most important skill for back-end development, I'm assuming. That is a tough question to answer. I mean, grit, is that a skill? Or is that just an attribute? I mean, just sticking with the challenge, whatever it is that you're trying to do. I think Python is an amazing place to start for backend development, but perhaps you want to learn more things in the relation of DevOps for a really solid backend skill. Hi from Bordeaux. Let's try that one again. There we go. Bordeaux, France. Hey, what's up? How's it going? Thanks for coming out, Pierre. I have never been to Bordeaux, but my wife and I, we were dating at the time, and we were in France, and I think that's where our love really solidified, to get all cheesy on you guys. But I have some fond memories of being in France. So cheers to that. All right. Up. So I'm assuming you mean the chat itself. You like it up here. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to experiment with that one. Anyways. Next up. Salute, Pierre. Yeah, salute. I believe that means hello. Is that correct? Or just like, is it like an actual salute? I don't know. The bottom's better. Directs our eyes towards it. Okay. Yeah, that was my sense originally, because, a lot of videos, like full-on production studios and stuff like that, I think they usually put the comments towards the bottom. Another thought was like putting it in the middle and then blurring myself out, but I end up talking for a long time for some of these comments, so it doesn't fully make sense to block this, Let's see here. Down. Looks like down might be the consensus overall. What are the projects for Python beginners to get better and the next step? Have you seen my 30 Days of Python series? Only 29 of the 30 days are done, but if you finish all of that and you don't have your own ideas for a lot of projects, come back on one of these live streams and let me know. All right. Next up, bonjour. Man, I should learn French. I need to learn so many languages. It's hard. Okay. Cool. And you have to make a video about this new stream tool I've been working with OBS without success. Oh, interesting. So maybe not on Coding for Entrepreneurs, or maybe on my personal channel or something. I'll have to cover things related to OBS. This tool itself is pretty technical to like talk about. So maybe in another video I'll actually talk about this stuff. But I think maybe a tutorial or two on OBS on how to actually get up and streaming, because I have some tips I guess I would use. But I also use OBS now as my primary screencast tool as well. I just use a different tool for editing the videos after I'm done with the actual screencast. OBS, the cool thing about OBS, I think, is if I go quiet, I don't think you hear the fan that's right underneath me, right? Maybe you do a little bit. I think that's happened a little bit here and there. But unfortunately, I'm in a garage and there's no air conditioning in here. And where I live gets pretty hot. It's not an ideal situation to not have a fan on, as in I would literally not be able to do it. But let me know if you guys want to see some tutorials on OBS other than Marcelo. Thank you, Marcelo, for the question. Okay. How to grow when the current company where I work doesn't involve much learning. Should I switch or should I learn side by side? What would be more beneficial in the long run? Amrish, I don't know your specific situation, right? What I would say is you should always be pushing yourself to learn more, right? Whether that's reading books in between the times that you can, so like while you're eating lunch or you're at home at nighttime. Like, if you have the time to like watch TV, that is good time to put towards learning something. In the short run, it's not as fun, but in the long run, it's going to benefit you a ton. Now, to me personally, I don't think I would ever work at a company that didn't have a high standard for moving your learning curve forward, right? So if you're just maintaining your job, that's fine in the short run, right? Like, we're talking about long-term things. But in the short run, if you can't learn at work, you should do it at home and just set yourself to that own standard, or that high standard. And learning, of course, doesn't have to be, oh, I'm going to get a book and read it necessarily. Maybe it's I listen to a podcast, or I watch some YouTube videos, or listen to the YouTube videos. Learning is obviously multifaceted, so it's not just about that. But what you want to be doing when you're learning is not just sitting back passively. You want to be actively involved in the learning process. Otherwise, you're not really going to learn it as much, right? So a good example of this would be math, right? You can watch all the 3 blue, 1 brown videos you want. They are amazing. They cover topics really, really well. But even the creator himself, his name's escaping me, but even the creator himself says, if you really want to learn math, buy a textbook. I don't have one on hand, but buy a textbook and do the problems in the back. He doesn't even say to watch his videos. He says go and do the math to understand the things behind it. That is something that I highly recommend that you do. So switching companies, if you can, do it. Go switch a company and go to a company that's going to hold you to a really high standard of learning things. Okay, got a couple super chats again. Thanks, Roberto, for another one. Appreciate it. And in the last live, you talked about Turing Pie and Kubernetes. Could you explain that topic a bit more? By the way, for those web scraping videos, I really enjoyed them. Thanks so much, Alberto. Gutierrez, I think I can pronounce your last name, well, at least as an American that speaks English and practically no Spanish. Okay. Anyway, so what is Kubernetes? I think that's the big question. Now, if you're familiar with Docker containers, maybe you're not even familiar with that. But let's say that you have an application that requires you to install a lot of things on the operating system side, right? So there's a manual way to do this. And the manual way would be to, like, let's say SSH into that operating system and then do the installations that need to happen just for your application to run. It's not even about the application, it's just getting your operating system ready to run. Right? So what Docker does is actually make that into essentially one page. You just write this one page. It's essentially a bunch of install scripts and preparation for an operating system to actually run your application level, right? And that's called a container. It's fairly isolated from other things using a virtualization technology. But the idea is a Docker container itself is an isolated environment that can run your applications. Okay. So when you have a lot of Docker containers and all of your application needs to use all of those Docker containers, we start to run into a little bit of an issue. Like, how do you actually manage this process? Especially if one of the containers goes bad, like it needs to come down for whatever reason, how do you manage that as well? That's where Kubernetes comes in. Now, there was something called Docker Swarm that also did something very similar to Kubernetes, but Kubernetes itself manages these Docker containers in a very, very nice and clean way to do a lot more microservices. Now, there's a lot to debate to whether or not you should do a microservice versus having a monolith. That's a whole other topic that we get into. But Kubernetes just really manages these Docker containers in a really, really effective way. But unfortunately, it's not incredibly easy to fully understand it. So the Turing Pi, the Turing Pi is another kind of technology that's really cool. It's actual hardware that allows you to embed Raspberry Pi compute modules. And these Raspberry Pi compute modules, if you've ever seen a Raspberry Pi, it's exactly that, except a lot of things are taken off of it. So it's basically just the chip, and you put it into a Turing Pi, and you can have 7 of those Raspberry Pi compute modules, at least for the current version of Turing Pi. And you can do Kubernetes on it with each one of those Raspberry Pi modules being a Kubernetes node for the entire Kubernetes cluster. And of course, if you don't know what that means, all I'm saying is the Turing Pi can run your Kubernetes, so you can actually learn how to use Kubernetes before you put it into production, like it's something like Google Cloud Compute, where Google Cloud Compute is going to start to get incredibly, incredibly expensive because Kubernetes requires a good amount of systems to actually work well, at least. Okay. Pipeline, what's up? Thanks for the live chat or the super chat. Appreciate it. So hopefully that answers your question, Umberto. Thanks again for the live chat as well. Okay, so next question. Roadmap as design patterns, Justin. Sorry, Pierre. I'm not sure what you meant by that. I lost that train of thought. Please clarify. What do you think about Go? I haven't used Go enough, Diego. Diego, hey, is that why you like Go? Because your name has it? Probably not. Sorry for the terrible, terrible dad joke. Go is gaining a lot of steam, and it's definitely something I need to look at. Same with Julia. Those two are ones that are probably a good idea to learn and look at. But for me right now, it's like almost completely JavaScript and Python. These are like, I'm really focused on these two because it helps the vast majority of people. The vast majority of people are not going to go into Go yet, or Julia yet, or any of the other ones yet, because I'm also a lot more interested in JavaScript and Python at this time, because it really helps me build a lot of my projects, which is cool. Next one. Will I be doing a tutorial for Stripe with Django? I've done a number of these actually on my website, but yeah, I intend to have more in the near future. Thanks for the question. As far as a tutorial on YouTube, that's probably something I should do. I would actually love it if Stripe or some of these other companies just hit me up and said, hey, we want to sponsor a video, make it as long as you want. Here's the guide for the tutorial that I want you to do. Have at it. That would be amazing. Maybe in the future, that's something that how I'll actually make videos going forward, especially for services, right? So Django's open source, so obviously not going to necessarily happen there, but Stripe is a service, so they have a marketing budget most likely, and why not hit me up and make something happen? What do you guys think? Michael, do you agree with this statement? I totally do, because we only have so much time, and I have a lot of interests. Having a sponsored video like that would just kind of cut through the noise a little bit, focus on that, give some value there for everyone that watches it, and then go back to all the other things. Next question. Best GUI framework for Python. So if you're not familiar with a GUI, it's a graphical user interface. I personally do not love writing GUIs in purely Python. So I'm not the person to ask for this. But I've heard that PyQt is probably the best choice. Again, I would much rather use web technologies for the front end and Python for the back end. So something like Electron is much more up my alley, or PyWebView, because the JavaScript portion, writing JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, just really makes it a lot easier to make a more powerful, robust front end for a GUI. Because like I can tell you right now, Electron drives Slack and VS Code. If you can show me something similar to that in a Python GUI, then maybe I'll have to change my outlook on that. But Python doesn't really make user interfaces that well because, well, JavaScript exists. And there's people like me who'd rather use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because it's been around for so long and there's all these packages supporting it, where the GUIs in Python they're just okay. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't learn them. That just means that I don't prefer them. That's it. All right. You watched my Django tutorial when you started and now you're a good developer. Hey, congratulations. Thank you for telling us that. Do you work as a freelancer? Are you at a, like a company, or do you have your own company? What's going on? Let us know. You used to tutor business subjects. That's great advice on the learning part. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it, Dave. Thank you so much. And oops, switched to the wrong way. Hey there, what's up? How's it going? And I gotta skip a few of these. Thank you. Tell us how to effectively learn new technology like I do. It's always about the project, right? So I try to get a specific project and master that project for what I'm trying to do. So for deep learning, for example, the same tool that you see this like chat on, I'm flushing it out. So not only does the chat exist, but it also will give me timestamps, for example, right? But what I also want to have is a deep learning library or a machine learning library go through each frame of any given video and give me a description as to what's going on in that video, so I can make the editing time go down a lot. So for example, right now it's just a talking head portion, right? Like it's just me talking with a little text on there. But if there's no code being shown. So it'd be great to have an automated distinguishment between those two things. So for me to actually figure out how to do this, I have to first start with a project like that, where I'm like, hey, how do I make this happen? Now, I had a sense that it'd be machine learning, but it led me down a path of just really getting down machine learning, but then also learning MoviePy much better, and FFmpeg, things that actually analyze these videos, which have nothing to do with machine learning, but they push me towards learning that other technology. And then I just read their documentation. Sometimes I read books, depending on what it is. But I really just follow what my interests and my effort is, right? So if I'm putting a lot of effort into something, then I just keep fueling that effort. Because interest will only take you so far, but your effort might push you through the trough or the challenges of all that effort. You know what I mean? All right, let's see here. Next one. Wow, I am so far behind in these questions. This is crazy. It's like it's so hard to keep up. I appreciate you guys hanging out and bearing with me. There's like probably no chance I will get to all of these questions, because even where I'm at right now, I think I'm like 30 minutes behind or something like that, maybe 20. Another thing I need to learn. You have a plan on content creation as well. What tips can I give you? Just start making it. Like, you'll learn more by just making it and seeing if anyone likes it than you will by me telling you what you could or could not do. Just pick up any kind of recording device you can and start using it, because the people, like, I think so. I have a really big light here that's showing this, right? Because of where I'm at. But if I was in front, if there was a window right there, it would give me roughly the same amount of light. But having this light and using a garage means that I can do it any time of the day. So if this was 3 a.m., I could do it the same. But if you don't have all of those things, you shouldn't go buy them. Instead, you should just put up a camera next to a well-lit window and start creating content. Now, of course, that is only if you want to be in it. Doing screen recording using something like OBS, and even your headphones have a mic on them, most likely. Even that mic, that's how I started. I had my computer and my headphone mic. Not necessarily these headphones, but that, like, the quality wasn't great, and even now I sometimes have quality that true professionals would be like, oh man, this audio isn't great, or this video is not great, or whatever. So you just need to get started. Should we all be learning TypeScript? Yeah, Dave. So that's a good question. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I mean, TypeScript's cool. It's interesting. But I actually don't use it nearly as much as I probably should. And when I say probably should, I mean like hardcore JavaScript developers would say, hey, you should use TypeScript and compile it into JavaScript. But then there's other hardcore JavaScript developers that say don't do that. So, the ball's in the air on that one. But I think for learning purposes, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead and learn TypeScript. But as far as using, I don't know. Next question. Django or Vue or Django React? Either. It doesn't matter. Honestly. I like React a lot, but that's the one I started with. But other people like Vue a lot. The point is actually to be really flexible with either of these things. So you also might say something like Flask and React, or Fast API and React, or Fast API and Vue, or Fast API and whatever comes next, right? So learning any and all of these things eventually is cool and important, just so you can stay flexible to what's coming. Because as soon as you get like really dialed into one language, you're really potentially losing what other things might offer, right? Now, if you're a complete beginner, I think Django is great because there's a lot of things that work outside the box, and then you wouldn't even be talking about the front end. But the point is to be as flexible as possible. Python or Go. I mentioned this a little bit ago. I don't use Go a ton, so actually practically not at all. I've dabbled with it here and there, so naturally I would say Python, but Go is something on my list of things that I should learn at some point. Dave, thanks for the mention about the comments on top. I will continue to poll you guys. I definitely need some sort of live poll link that I can actually get full-on live polls, so that at the end of the session we could just throw up what that graph is and just be a little bit more democratic about it. But thanks for the comment. Can I recommend good books for deep learning with basics up until hands-on? Yes. Let me just grab it real fast. There's a couple of them that I want to mention. Here's one. Let's see. Come on. Let's focus. Autofocus is not working. There we go. Deep learning for coders with Fast AI and PyTorch. That's a really good one. Jeremy Howard also has YouTube videos himself. So if you search, sorry if you can't hear me, if you search for Fast AI, you will find some stuff there. Another one. Sorry, this one fell down. This one I've been a huge fan of because it goes to, this is like takes the opposite approach almost of Jeremy Howard. This one shows you how to do it in pure NumPy by creating a neural network, and that's Andrew Trask. I think at some point I might need to start reviewing books because I get these questions a lot. Here's another one I have not had a whole lot of time with just yet because I've got so many things going on. Hands-on machine learning with scikit-learn, Keras, and TensorFlow. That one's also really good. This is the second edition, but I think either edition would probably serve you well. I like the physical book because when I'm reading the physical book, it's like I'm actually doing a book. And I believe all of those have hands-on practice and quite a bit of hands-on practice. But like when it comes down to it, after you learn some of the basics, it goes back to like, hey, how do you actually build something real? How do you actually use a full-on project? All right, thanks for the question. Next one. One last question before you finish report. What report is that? Is it for work? If it's for work, just don't finish it. Just kidding, of course. Should you write a script for every website, or is there a shortcut? Extract data from various websites. Well, actually, what might be a really good idea is for somebody to come up with a GitHub that has all the scripts for all of these different websites for scraping generally and maybe going a little bit more in depth. I think that is a cool idea. Perhaps I should put it on my GitHub, but this is what occurred to me. Because, yeah, you kind of actually have to write a script for every single website that you plan on scraping, because very few websites are identical, right? If they have underlying, like if the back end is like WordPress or Shopify, then yeah, they have a lot of underlying foundations, but that's, it's hard to even identify that for sure. Maybe not impossible. Actually, it's probably not that hard, but the idea is you'll probably have to scrape from every website. Leonardo, hey, what's up? How's it going? Haha! Keep my hand still, or hold my head still. I do not know how to do that. And yes, it is focusing very poorly, huh? Sorry, guys. I didn't realize that. Maybe I need to get a different kind of autofocus lens. This one's just worked really well. It's a Sony one, but obviously the autofocus part needs to be adjusted a bit. Sorry about that. Hopefully listening to it is more valuable than just watching it. I don't know. We'll see. Hey, from India. Hey, how's it going? Where in India are you from? And let's see. Haha, Dave. My problem is you get too many ideas before you have the skills. But that's not a problem. That is like a blessing in disguise. Maybe you just don't realize it. I have that same blessing, right? I have a ton of ideas, but the trick is to stick with one, right? And the only way you can stick with one is if you test and see if other people actually want it. So I released a series called MVP Landing somewhat recently that helps you at least launch your idea. So get to the point where you can launch your idea, make a little video, and see if people actually want it, right? If people want it, then you get this upward momentum of going forward, right? So these live streams are a good example of that. If I only had 5 people come on, I probably wouldn't do a live stream for very long, right? I mean, maybe some people definitely do it for a long time, but I know that I have a bunch of courses I need to make. I have a bunch of things that I want to learn. I just showed you 3 books with like 400 pages that I want to finish and read again and again. I want to master all those things. So being on a live stream, if nobody was here, then I would move to the next thing. And I think a lot of ideas are like that, right? So if you pitch an idea and you get some traction for it, it's just super motivating to keep going forward with it. Just like I've had a number of questions related to showing these comments on this live stream. That's a good example of, maybe there's something more to that. At the very least, you guys seem to enjoy it. Maybe not, but I like it a lot because now it's at least separating out a lot of the content that I'm working on. Hello from Indonesia. I should probably stop reading it as if I'm saying it, huh? Thank you. I'm going to call you Aziz. I'm sorry I do not know how to pronounce your first name, and I'm very poor at pronunciation. But hello. Hopefully you guys are nice and safe over there. I think there was a number of challenges earlier this year, and I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm glad to hear from you. I guess everyone's had a pretty challenging year, right? It's amazing how much this has impacted the entire world in some form or fashion, right? So even if your local city or your family wasn't impacted hardly at all, certainly your work and the way your daily life have been, right? It's crazy. 2020, huh? Make some vlogs. Interesting. I haven't heard this a whole lot. Probably because I'm just not sure what you'd want to see in a vlog. My life is pretty simple. I have a beautiful family. I hang out. I have 2 daughters and a wife, and we all just hang out when I'm not working, and we do fun things. But naturally, I'm not going to put them on camera and stuff like that. It's just not what I want to do. So what would you like to see in a vlog would be the question. Cool. Let's see. Next up. What topics should you focus on taking Python to the next level? Asynchronous. Do supercharged web scraping with Python on my website. Those are, I mean, being able to execute things asynchronously in Python is incredibly challenging. So I do recommend that you check that one out because it will certainly help you learn how to do some asynchronous code. Thanks for the question. Pipeline. Haha. What's up? Welcome back. Good to see you. You guys should check out his channel. It's really good. He's got a lot of really interesting things. So I do recommend you do that. I'm glad I'm an inspiration for you. You are an inspiration for me as well. You've got some good stuff in there. So thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. Next question. Can we use a free database for an app you're making? Like saving profile information and accounts? Yes. Heroku. Heroku has a free tier that also includes a free database. It's not necessarily the highest performant version, but it's certainly answers the challenge that you have. Next up, you're learning machine learning. A company didn't hire me in machine learning. We should start to reach the machine learning script developer. Like start with Django and other. Yeah, so Django and machine learning can work together. Like you don't necessarily use Django for machine learning, and I mean you can. So there's a lot of things that you can do with machine learning because it's software, right? Or at least how it starts as software. So I would actually spend a lot of time reading those books I just mentioned a few minutes ago to actually learn some of machine learning itself. Scikit-learn is a great beginner place to go because it's not as complicated as like deep learning. Deep learning gets a lot more complicated and it's very heavy in math if you really want to understand it. But I would say the biggest role of a lot of these data science engineers is actually haranguing the data, like getting the data cleaned, finding that data, organizing it. That's where you're going to spend a lot of time. And that's where I think Django could actually come in. So yeah. Cool. Next question. Worst, most annoying part of Django. Worst part of Django. I think that it's not fully asynchronous yet. It might be one of the things that's a little bit of a bummer. Also, that the Django REST framework is a separate package. I actually think that should be part of Django now. Like it should be a part of the core Django package. Maybe even definitely before asynchronous code. You could use Django for all sorts of REST APIs, absolutely. But I think native support for official Django REST APIs, it would be a really good idea. The Django REST framework has been amazing. So I actually propose that the Django team should hire them or somehow get them into the team so those two become integrated, much like they did with South migrations way back in the day, which is why we have migrations now. They hired what's his name, Andrew Goodwin, or he's one of their core developers now. He just recently gave a great talk. If you missed my last YouTube live scene, or I don't even remember when I said it now, but check out Andrew Goodwin's recent talk on all sorts of things, the future of Django, and I think that also highlights some areas of development that Django is going into. But I would really love to see the native REST framework built into Django. That's actually probably the highest one. Asynchronous stuff would be amazing, but it's not nearly as important as the REST framework has been. But that would also include authentication and all sorts of best practices for authentication, directly from Django and the core development team, because those guys are masters. It's just absolutely amazing what they do. Do you prefer a lot of different apps on Django application or rather keep it compact? So when you say apps, I'm assuming that you mean the Django apps, which is fairly confusing. Let's call them Django components inside of a Django web application. Some of my Django projects are large. So yeah, I have a lot of sub Django apps in some of them. And I also have a lot of microservices that I use. Sometimes that's Django, sometimes it's Flask, sometimes it's Fast API. And inside of Django or any of my web applications, I'll just have some bindings that connect to those things. But as I start out, usually I try to write as little code as possible to be most effective. So a lot of times when I'm prototyping something, I will use a third-party API and keeping my Django project really small. And that third-party API does something for me that I need to have happen that maybe later down the line I'll write a custom solution for on my Django project too. Dave Love, that'd be really good. What are you referring to? Sorry, I forgot. Do I have any courses on Udemy? Yes, I do. I have everything on my website though. So when in doubt, my website has everything. Personally, I stand by the things that I do, right? I stand by what I talk about. My website is a good example of that. And it gives me a better one-to-one and just a better control over the entire environment for all of my courses. And I've been thinking a lot about how to improve it even more. And hopefully we'll see that in the near future. Thank you so much. How would you balance the business side and coding side of a solo founder? I feel like I'm focused too much on the coding part and not enough on the business side. Yeah, I think this is a common challenge for technical founders, right? Is which part do you focus on the most? And I think it's going to be different for everyone. You know, how do you balance it? Well, the business side has to happen. The coding side doesn't always have to happen, right? So the technical side, unless your service is technical, if the business side is falling apart, you probably won't have a coding side or a technical side very long. So to me, it's like you got to identify what the critical business things are and do them. Ideally, do them as best you can. And if for some reason those things are falling apart and you don't feel like you're doing well with the business side, you can always try and partner with somebody who can handle those things for you. Even if it's part-time, even if it's a few hours a week or whatever. For me, I do it in phases, right? So I spend a lot of time on the technical. The vast majority of time I spend is on the technical. And then the business side is usually in phases, right? It's just like a small piece, maybe a couple days, maybe more, that are focused on the business side. So that's because that's how my business actually works, right? So that's how Coding for Entrepreneurs actually works. But if you were freelancing, I think a lot of your work would have to go into the business side because you'll have to be selling your services a lot. Because even if you have a job right now, you still need to line up a job for after that current, project or whatever you were hired for is done, and you'd have to continuously do that. So that would mean that you'd have to foster business all the time. So it'd almost be like 50-50. But for me, I mean, what we're talking about right now, this is in a form of marketing. I intend to help everybody, but if you look at it from a business side, hopefully this builds some traction. People are like, oh, wow, I am super excited about learning how to code and going down that rabbit hole. So now I'm going to invest and go on cfe.sh or codingforentrepreneurs.com and buy the courses and do it, right? That totally can and does happen from these live streams. So in a way, this is marketing. That's not my intention for this. My intention is actually to answer questions. But if you realize that everything that you do is marketing, that then means that everything that you do is part of that business side, including the coding that you end up doing. So yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question. So let's see. Next one. Can I give junior Python developers some advice how to get their first job? Yeah, this actually comes up a lot. I probably need to interview more like Python or Django hiring managers because it's just a very common question. I'll tell you what I would look for. Number one, progress, right? You want to see progress. You want to see improvement over time. So how do you show improvement over time? Well, you have to actually have a portfolio somewhere. So put it on GitHub, get your projects on there as much as possible, and do as many of those projects as possible. The next thing is, if you're looking for a job at a specific place, assuming it's not a giant organization, let's say, for instance, a small to medium-sized business, and they have a listing for a junior Python developer. Take a look at their business and identify 10 things that you think should be improved with their business. And ideally, 5 or 6 or 7 or all 10 of those things are things that can be solved with Python. And if that's the case, actually attempt to solve it and send it to them free of charge. Once you do that, then you can be like, hey, I noticed you're also hiring for this position. I would love to be considered. Right? So, but give the value first, ask for what you want second. Now, keep in mind that this is not always going to be successful, but I guarantee you 999 people out of 1,000 will not do this. So the only way to stand out, the only way to be outstanding is to stand out. That's what I was trying to say. But really, like, you got to do something that nobody else is going to do. Now, this strategy might work really, really well, but it also might become very common, which is good and bad. But then you'll have to think of whatever would come next after that. You know what I mean? Yeah. Okay, let's see. Next question. Can I manage to come 2 hours back? I assume that you mean like way earlier than this. Yeah, I need to do it at different times for those of you in India. I really appreciate you coming on, even if it's super, super late. I know it's incredibly challenging, but that's the other part of this that I'm wanting to solve. That's why you see these comments on here, is so that I can eventually have a really easy way for you to just scan questions or even write a question, and you can watch my response as a video, hopefully in the near future. But yeah, I definitely need to do some different times, and I will in the near future. So thank you for the question there. Next up, Alberto, back again. Thank you. Last one before you go to Zoom class. Are you familiar with applications like Roam Research or Notion? What kind of code is needed to create such applications? Man, I've definitely seen Notion, but I've never actually used it. So I don't have any sort of feedback on that. Sorry that I can't give you more. Roam Research, I haven't used that one either. Maybe I should check these things out. If they're anything like Slack, or if they feel like Slack, then there's a really good chance that it's JavaScript heavy and like some sort of backend. I can't say it's Django or Python or even JavaScript. Who knows? It might be Ruby on Rails, you know? And if it's anything like Basecamp, so Basecamp is something that I've used before, or hey.com. Those things, I believe, are completely in Ruby on Rails on the back end, and JavaScript certainly have JavaScript on the front end. Pretty much always, whenever you see interactive parts of a site, that is pretty much always JavaScript. Anyways, so thanks for asking that question, Alberto. Good luck with your Zoom class. Okay, so next one. Is it better to learn HTML and CSS before learning JavaScript? Yeah, probably. That would probably be pretty helpful. But JavaScript is a scripting language or a programming language. So HTML and CSS are considered markup. The distinguishment is a lot harder to fully grasp. But if you're interested in programming in general, JavaScript isn't just for the web, right? So you can absolutely use JavaScript and never touch HTML and CSS. So yeah, I think you can absolutely use JavaScript. Here we go. Look at this question. How to deal with a browbeating senior dev in the workplace. Oh man, I think the question here is, how do you deal with someone who has seniority but isn't very kind? Right? So there's many ways to accomplish this. I think doing incredible work and doing it with a smile on your face, even if they're being like rude or jackasses, you know? Like you just like, yeah, okay, I did that. Cool. The other thing is actually standing up to some of these people, not in a rude way necessarily, but to literally being more assertive in your own position, right? So if you're not necessarily assertive, then these browbeating people or these really rude, kind of trying to be dominating sort of people will always be that way. And when I say standing up to them, you could literally say, hey, why are you always doing X, Y, or Z? It kind of hurts my feelings when you do that. That's not rude. That's standing up for yourself, though. And if that continues to happen, then you talk to somebody else that's even more senior than that dev to come to some sort of resolution. But I think asking them questions that kind of puts them on the line as to why they act that way without literally saying, "Hey, why are you acting this way?" That might be another thing. Or just talk to them. Be like, "Hey, do you not like me or something? Because I don't understand why you're treating me this way." That might be another thing. Or, hey, do you not like the rest of the team? Then you can maybe get down to some more underlying issues there. That's a good question, though. I always think the work speaks for itself. So if you're an amazing developer and you're also friendly and nice to other people, even if they are below you in that organization or way above you, I mean, if you're treating everyone with respect and kindness and maybe some patience too, then people like this are toxic to the environment, and you can kind of sort of ask a bunch of questions with them and perhaps with other people or more senior people in the room to help identify those things as well, to see where it comes. But hopefully that helps. Now, if you're talking about someone who's pushing you really hard, they're not like rude or anything. Like I would imagine working for someone like Elon Musk, he's very straightforward. He cuts to the fat. He doesn't like soften the blow when it's like, hey, this is really bad. We can't do this. Like saying things matter of fact like that might offend some people and might feel like they're being browbeating. But what they're really doing is just being very level-headed and challenging you in a new way. So that is quite a bit different than somebody who's clearly a bully, right? So somebody who's acting that way, you have to take what their personality is and also see if it's individualized to you, right? I'm saying this about Elon Musk because I think most of us understand who know about him that he's probably that way. He's probably very, very challenging, and it might be really hard to work with. But at the end of the day, I would imagine it's going to make you better of a developer itself, right? So if you want to be the best, you have to actually challenge and work with the best. And sometimes that's incredibly hard and incredibly demotivating because they're so talented. They might just be very matter of fact about things that aren't that great or aren't doing that well. Good question. I think that's something that more people should talk about, is like how to actually deal with challenging situations, especially if all you've ever done was do software development in school and stuff like that, and you never really had a job where there's a lot of conflict. That also might mean, hey, good advice would be actually go getting a job where you're dealing with people a lot more, right? So I worked in restaurants a lot. Working with restaurants, you get all sorts of people that are there and that you have to deal with, whether it's the customers themselves or other people that are also working in that restaurant. And you can learn a lot of conflict resolution in there that can absolutely translate over to working in software. The only difference is there are some incredibly brilliant people that work in software. So when you are hoping to grab respect of a developer that's a senior developer, the goal is to be respectful yourself, but then also clarify when things really just are upsetting you in one form or another, right? If they are demeaning to you, you can ask, hey, how come you treat me that way? Like, it really doesn't feel good when you say stuff like that to me. Is there something that I'm doing that I can change so it's not said that way, or whatever? As long as you frame it in a term that you're doing something wrong, that might help illustrate that they actually realize that they're actually doing something wrong. So really good question. Anyways, next one. Can I make a tutorial on the Fast API framework? I intend to, but there's so much time in the day. But yes, I do intend to. So thanks for the question. such a bad answer. Uh, anyways, okay, guys, I'm only going to be on for a few more minutes. I got to get going. So I'm super behind in these questions. So thank you guys for all of them. I'm going to answer a few more. Michael, I'm going to start with yours in just a moment. It looks like maybe some of the questions are done. Have I really not been getting much questions in the last few minutes? Maybe. You guys see that too? The last question about 5 minutes ago. Was there a big gap in the questions themselves, or am I just getting close to the end here? Maybe the questions have just stopped. Okay, well, I'll answer this one and maybe one or two more. See what's going on with the live stream. Doesn't seem like there are that many more, but anyways, so Michael, you identify a problem in your current work and create an application that is better. What's currently in place? You take the solution to your boss, and no one seems interested. What do you do? So yes, this is definitely one of the challenges with solving problems, right? So whenever you're solving a problem, you have to run the risk that nobody's interested in it. So what's actually better is to identify that problem and pitch the solution, not build the application yet. So especially if it's at your work, right? Create a full-on presentation for it. Ask your bosses for the opportunity to pitch in front of everybody and literally pitch it and see if there's interest in there. And if there is interest, that's when your boss can say, like, yeah, let's do this, you know? And if you're still interested and nobody else is, now you know. Now you can be like, okay, I'm going to still create this application because I'm interested. And maybe if I show them a working prototype, they'll be more interested. But also, you already know now, prior to ever doing any work other than the pitch, you will actually have a foundation for moving forward into what may or may not be done in that application. Good question. All right, thank you. Thank you for watching. Let's see, Dave, thank you. What's my take on Fast API? It is fantastic. Very similar to Flask, but it has asynchronous capabilities built in, so it's a bit faster. I would say that there's a lot of work that has to be done to get it going, right? Django has a lot of things built into it, so when we compare the two, I don't think it's a fair comparison, but I often get that as a follow-up question when you ask about Fast API. But I think it's really good. It's gotten a lot of steam, and it's actually built on Starlet, so it's built on another framework, which is funny. It's almost like if Django was built on Flask. Like, that would be kind of interesting, right? So I'm not quite sure the motivation behind that specifically, but appreciate it. Next up, make some vlogs. Just saying, for your channel, people love vlogs of a great learner. Ah, thank you. I am honored to be appreciated as a great learner. I love learning new things, so yeah. It looks like my integration for these questions is no longer active. I think I need to work on the refresh token. So I actually only have 3 questions left, but I'll answer a few other ones. Actually 2 questions left. I'll answer a few other ones without the comment on the screen. So thank you for bearing with me. Okay, next one. When I start coding challenges and face difficulties, I'd rather not give up. Any advice on how to motivate myself? Anything good is challenging, right? One way or another, it's going to get challenging. So that probably isn't great to hear when you're like, I'm not motivated to do that. Well, to me, I enjoy the challenge. That's why I take on what I take on, is for the challenge. It's the difficulty, once you get through it, is incredibly rewarding. So it starts to become a self-fulfilling cycle, because you take on a challenge, you accomplish that challenge, you get the reward, you take on a new challenge, you accomplish that challenge, taking a reward, and so on. It keeps on going. To me, that's motivation enough to keep conquering challenges. Realistically, this has started since you were a kid, right? Since you were born. The very first challenge was how to get food. And then it was maybe how to crawl and how to walk. These things you just kept going until you accomplished those things. And you didn't do it consciously, you just kept going. So even if you have a challenge, just keep going. Maybe stop this current thing for, a day or a week or whatever, but do something else and then come back. That's what I think. Okay, so this is the last one that will actually display on the video, but I'll answer a few more questions from the live chat. Is it possible or is it viable to make a professional website with WordPress? Absolutely. WordPress is one of the most dominant blog platforms there is, and it continues to be that way for a lot of reasons. One of them being that it is very mature. Cool. Okay, so I'm just going to answer a few more questions that just came up. March of the Titans book. It's funny. I'm stuck on a technical problem of my Django SaaS. Any tips? Kind of vague. I don't have any tasks. Dave Love, I see how you do this as a Q&A. Yep, it's a Q&A. That's right, Dave. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. What is the best library to work with Django? So like a best third-party plugin. I mentioned the Django REST framework. That's probably my favorite that's specific for Django. But pretty much any Python library that can work with Django. Not necessarily a question. Wanted to tell you you've done a great job. Thank you so much. And you get more motivated to keep learning. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, yeah, until the next time I make one, right? Dave Love, so just so I don't comment to things in real time and just ask complete questions. It's a good format. It's much more focused than other live streams I've seen. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Dave. I think once I finish this other part and solve all the challenge with it, I hope that not only will it be a good live stream, but it will be good after the live stream ends, like, as individual clips of some kind too. Hope you'll make some more OpenCV videos. Have a nice day. Thank you for the suggestion. I probably should do that. I think they need to be updated. And OpenCV itself is an incredibly popular topic. And one of my OpenCV videos has been doing pretty much just as good, if not better, than a lot of all my other ones. So, yeah, I probably should do more. Last question, what do I do for a living? I teach people how to code. That is what I do for a living. Which also is baked into that. I learn and research all sorts of projects all of the time. Ooh, I jumped over a question. What was your question? Sorry, I didn't see it. My little application that I was doing is still working out some bugs. So thanks for that. Let's see, Dave. Wow, a lot of good questions today, Dave. Thank you for coming out. It should be advised to include it, if only because it enables a lot of expansion later. Yep, totally. Map API recommendations. Good question. So, do I have any recommendations for using maps? The Google Maps API is great. That is the one that I've used a lot. So I would check out the Google Maps API. I think that's really just the most dominant one too. Okay, let's say 2 more questions, and then I really gotta get going. 2 more questions, real quick. You guys can answer that, ask them, and it looks like we're not getting any more. Okay, cool. Well, thanks so much for coming out, guys. I appreciate it. These Q&As are very interesting to do, and I'm really pleased with the progress of this project I have right now. So yeah, I can't wait to see, more of these questions working out better, and hopefully having little clips that answer these questions, and maybe even an AI chatbot that's watching these live chats, so that when questions are answered, the chatbot immediately responds to you and then gives you a suggestion of another little clip that you can go and watch while the live chat's happening, assuming that the live chat is going. Pipeline, thanks, man. Appreciate it. React Alternative, Vue.js. Thank you. Have a good night. Good day. See you guys next time.